And as I was reading it, I thought, well, this really fits in beautifully with what we use as a framework. And each week we will refer to some area of this framework. And it's quite a simple strategy. And for anybody looking to grow their business or who gets confused and maybe needs to clarify where they are with the business, there's 5 key areas in any marketing strategy. You don't need to make it any more complicated than that. Who's the audience you want to get in front of? How are you going to help them? Who is that audience and where are they? How are you going to stop them from doing what they're doing, to grab their attention and get them to lean in to the second stage, which is a conversation, engagement? How are you going to get them to do that? And what's that engagement process going to look like? Because you're looking to build trust, you're looking to build a feeling of confidence, you're looking to build a relationship. All business is based on relationship. Brands build relationship. Your brand is your relationship you have with people, your reputation. So that engagement process is really key. The third area, of course, and for many small businesses, that's a feeling that's an area that they feel a little bit awkward about because they don't want to appear to be selling something, for goodness sake, is the sales process itself and all the machinations of that, whether it's the pricing structure, offer structures, the way we sell. That's a really big subject. And that's where most people then go back to another audience because they want more sales, they want more engagement. They go through this sales pipeline, this process, and think that's it. But they miss out on 2 key areas. And the 2 key areas is what happens after the sale, which is really key because that's where you're going to retain clients. Client retention, if you're going to build business for the future, is really key. And you need to have we need to have a retention strategy, because that retention strategy can also lead to referrals, or what we call introductions, back to that audience. Makes sense. So we work constantly within that framework, reminding people, reminding us all. And I have to say, when I get a little bit lost, and I do, like everybody else on this call, I go back to say, what am I not doing in these areas? Where is business potentially slipping through the net? Where is the bucket leaking? So this was the ebook that I downloaded, and I'm going to give you a copy. It was produced by Outbound Engine, so I'm not going to pretend it's from me, but it brings out some really good points. And they propose that your goal for every new lead should be to nurture them from the first hello to a lasting relationship. Now, why does that matter? Anybody say anything?
Bird in the hand, worth 2 in the bush, they say.
Well, it makes sense, but what they say, and I think they're absolutely right, is it matters because this leads to repeat business and it leads to referrals. If you think of just that meme I've just showed you, our job is to nurture every lead and take them from hello to a lasting relationship. And anybody that's been on this call for a number of weeks will know that that is really key to the way I think is very, very important, because sometimes we go to networking events, we might meet people today, we don't really know them that well. I'm talking about the new people. And you meet people and you think, oh, they're not in the market for my product or service. You don't know who they know. And you don't know whether the timing is right for them. The timing may not be right. There's no reason why you can't build a relationship. Now, do you build a relationship with everybody you ever meet? I don't think so. You need to make those judgments as to where you take people along their journey. What they did cover in the points they make is knowing when to call. So they've got somebody as a lead, somebody has expressed some interest. When do you call them? And they're suggesting a phone call. When they called you first. 53% of customers become very irritated when they can't speak to a real person. especially if that person promises to call them back. How many times have we had that happen? When they've opened 4 or 5 of the last email newsletters you've sent, if you've got an emailing system, you will be able to check when people have opened. You'll also be able to check when people are opening your emails consistently. I'll come back to emails in a moment. Maybe they replied to a couple of your email newsletters about topics indirectly related to your business. Maybe this could be the same on social media, but again, we'll cover that. Or they visit a pricing page or FAQ page of your website. Now, they know more than I do, because that's an area, and maybe Ollie can comment later about how you would know somebody's actually visited a pricing or page, because certainly if somebody's visited a pricing page, that's exactly the time to give them a call, because they're clearly interested in the pricing. And as for emails, by the way, the average person receives 121 emails, but only 22% are opened. So if somebody's opening your email, they're quite relaxed about receiving information from you and maybe receiving a call from you where appropriate. Maybe they fill out a contact or information request form. If you can get back to them pretty damn quickly, that I know from experience, they will be very impressed on that. This is an obvious one for most people, but if people are reacting on social media, whether that's liking your post or retweeting your tweets, that's a really good time to get back to people. Now, you're not going to get back to everybody every time they retweet, but the mere fact of starting a conversation online, engaging with them, as we said earlier, is really key. Someone referred them to you or mentioned that they might be in need of your services. That's absolutely critical to follow that up. A number of times in my 10-year career with my own region on B&I, and with another 10 years of helping others, connecting people, and I put people in touch with it and nothing happens, is embarrassing. Embarrassing. And I know from our recent calls, if you receive an introduction, somebody's taken the time to introduce you either online or in person, you really must get back and follow that up pretty damn quickly if your reputation is to stay intact. Now they produce in this booklet a really nice template, and I've actually copied that, and I don't know anybody that went to the business networking focus at Bristol on Friday, but I wonder how many have actually followed up with emails and messages. And this is a great one to copy and paste. It was great meeting you. You can specify there in brackets when and where you met, yesterday, this morning in Bristol. I'd love to stay in touch. Do you mind if we connect on LinkedIn? Simple. Get them into a system, 2 systems ideally, their social media system and your email system, whereby you can at least begin a conversation, you can follow up. I do that all the time, and then I have in my system, it carries forward about 3 days, and all it says is what you're going to do next. So it gives me a chance to say, oh, I contacted, have they replied? No, they haven't. What shall I do next? Having better online conversations is the way to build rapport. For instance, you could spread the news. If you're to be seen as the authority in your niche, what is it you're an authority about? What's happening in that niche? Are there any new things happening? For instance, where'd you get the news from? Well, you'll be aware of hopefully you're aware of what's going on in your particular niche. But it's also a good idea to follow thought leaders in your niche. And that's a good source is something like Twitter or LinkedIn. You can press a follow button, and every time they say something that's meaningful. And there are not many original thought leaders in any of the social media channels. But I get a lot of my inspiration from YouTube and from podcasts, etc. So, and they give me inspiration that I want to share. And I bathe in some of that glory, at least I hope I do. In online conversations, you can ask for recommendations. You can be a pain reliever. If you notice in conversations people are having particular pains, you can offer advice, you can offer solutions. Sometimes people are guarded about what they share, but they shouldn't be. Because if all you know is all you know, then you might as well give up now. You've got to be you'll know more tomorrow and more next week than you know at present. Promote events. That was a particularly interesting one, especially after Friday. I know had I been able to get there, I would have definitely been taking photographs. I'd have been definitely be taking video. I'd have pulled those together in some sort of story and share that. How else could people share that event? How have people shared that event? When we open up the call, I'll come back to that. In online conversations, we can ask for testimonials. And this is strange, and I puzzled over this. This is in their ebook, Discuss Do It Yourself projects. Well, I don't do anything myself. I don't do it yourself. The best thing I do is to hang photographs, and half of those are not hung at the moment. So I'm not that type of person. But when I thought a bit longer, a bit further into that, it's actually helping people in doing more of what you do. So if it could be, for instance, the way to ask for testimonials, or it could be some element of marketing, I could share those, and I do, and you could as well. And share inspirational quotes. Well, I love that. I'm big on supporting people when they may feel down, and I know inspirational quotes stop me. I enjoy them. It makes me think. And in fact, what's also quite good, rather than just share somebody else, share the quote and give the message, give the quote to whoever originated it, but share some of your own thoughts. If you're sharing somebody else's quote, stick it on a photograph and maybe subtly put some branding of your own. So, for instance, I should have shown you at that point something I'm sharing at the moment, but it's obviously not there. That's when you send one thing on one computer to the cloud, and it didn't come back onto this cloud yet. But I'm sharing notes, things like that all the time. When you call somebody, when you meet somebody, I've said this for a long time, have a journal with you. Have something where you take notes. Even if it's on a Zoom or a one-to-one call, I've got a pen and I've got paper next to me, and I ask, can I take a few notes? It's not intrusive. People actually subliminally say, hey, this guy's taking notes. He's interested. It's professional. I don't know how people, and I've noticed this at all the thousands of meetings I attended at B&I, people would sit there with a breakfast and they wouldn't take notes. Or they'd take notes on a slip of paper and leave that paper behind. And I'm thinking, how do you remember all this stuff? And I've got journals back to all the meetings I ever attended. So it helps you focus on your conversations. It helps you focus because when you write something down, you're writing important points down. It allows you to ask meaningful questions and listen to the answer, but not necessarily interrupt that answer, because you know you've written something down and you can come back to it. Also, you can keep the other person focused on the conversation. It allows you to better follow up with what was discussed on that meeting. So I would always put a circle after a meeting. I'd put a circle around all of the things I said I would follow up on, and I would look to follow up on them. And that could be just merely following up in a message to that person. Allows you to do your job more easily, and it builds stronger customer relations, because that mere act of you taking notes is saying that that person is interested. They recommend a number of apps for taking notes. Be interested in what apps you use: Evernote, OneNote, Google Keep. I don't use any of those. I tend to use Apple Notes because I'm an Apple man. I use it. I prepare lots of meetings. I prepare these meetings. I prepare notes during the day online. If I'm not using my own notebook, which I like to use, I use something called Agenda. It's absolutely brilliant if you're a Mac user. And I also use otter.io. So, oh, by the way, no, I use a moleskin diary, either a diary or a journal, because it keeps everything in one place. And I just love the tactile feel of a moleskin journal. And they're not very expensive and they're well worth it. But before I go on to saying thank you, the other thing I will do is also use something called otter.io, which is a voice recognition system. I think you get about 500 minutes a month free. It's absolutely brilliant. It's very accurate, and it enables you to write down what you're thinking about. But there's also other note recording apps on your phone. I think the other thing I also do a lot of is actually take photographs. Now, everybody knows that, but if I see something, and I was watching something last night and I suddenly saw something on screen, it was on a whiteboard, I took a photograph of it. And if you're on the Apple system, it will convert whatever's on there into text. There's a little text button. It'll pull the text off that, and you can then put it into a note for later use. Same if you're seeing somebody, out in the streets, wherever, if there's text there, you can photograph it now and pull it back into whatever note app you have. And how to say thank you. I always knew that saying thank you when people least expect it, when they least expect it, is amazingly powerful. My eldest son's birthday today. He's 45 years old, and he'll get birthday cards. And he'll get one of mine and he'll get presents, and people will shower lots of love to him, etc. To do that when it's not his birthday would be quite unexpected and have a lot more power. So a little thank you note, a handwritten note. You don't have to have an excuse to send somebody a handwritten note. Just thank you for being there. Thank you for whatever that you did. It goes a hell of a long way. Why a handwritten note? Because we don't get handwritten notes anymore. It's all email. Send food is one of their recommendations. I think I can tell this is from an American company because they're all into cookies and donuts, etc. But I was sending something other than, a mug with your details on is probably quite well accepted. In some cases, send drink. Maybe that for the politicians in Westminster. or a party invite. Give them their 15 minutes was a good way of saying thank you. And that was really all about featuring them, or featuring what that conversation meant to them on social media. And I know a lot of people on this call do things like that. Host a get together. Rod's done that very successfully. All the people that's helped him make his last year successful in the funeral business, he invited to a party at Christmas. There's 30 odd of us. And in fact, last month we all went skittling, and almost the same number of people were there. And it was well appreciated. And in the first one, Rod funded it himself. And the second one, I think he funded a lot of it, and we just paid for any food we had, etc. So, and it was well appreciated. It builds camaraderie, it builds togetherness, etc. We've hosted a walk around Bristol, and we still need to host another one walking around Blagdon Lake. So we'll be doing that. Got to do that. But any way you can say thank you when you don't expect it. Maybe you don't normally do that. And maybe this is a note to myself, is that put a reminder on the phone who you're going to say thank you to this week. Who you're going to say thank you to this week. What are you going to do? And give proactive customer services. I'm not a professional photographer, certainly not. I wouldn't want to compete with the experts on here, but I was commissioned to do my first paid-for photograph recently. And it was a lady that, on Facebook, she'd seen some of my drone work and said, would you do a drone shot of my mother's house? It's her 60th birthday shortly. And she's lived there all her life. I've lived there, and she's very proud of it. And I said, sure. So I gave her a price, and it was for, I was taking the drone up and I was giving her one A3 photograph. That was all. And I met her, very difficult place to be because lots of telegraph wires, etc. But I did it. And while I was up there, I thought, well, I might as well turn the video camera on for my own benefit. And I did a short video. Anyway, I've done the photograph for her. She's absolutely delighted. But in the meantime, I went the extra mile. I thought, well, I've got this footage. I'll put it together in a short story with some music. I was really practicing my editing. And in the end of it, I put the text, happy birthday, Mum. And I sent it to her. I said, you might want to give her this first and then present her with the photograph. And she's absolutely thrilled to bits. Didn't cost me anything. But you can imagine that extra customer service, that extra bit, is something that maybe get me more work in that area. And finally, it covers a lot of the areas that we've covered a lot. It's how to ask for referrals. And it could be traditional referrals. And I think there, as we discussed recently, it's all very well to say, do you know somebody that? But you've got to really teach the other person the sort of introductions you want. We'll cover some of that shortly. Exactly who would be a good audience for you and who wouldn't be a good audience. So you've got to teach people, if you want referred business, who would be ideal. So if you're dealing with people that are already customers, they're perfect because they know what they've got from it. You know what you've got from it, what you bring to the party. But find out from them what they have got from your interaction and then really ask for them as to who else they may know like that. And then maybe explain some of the clients that you're working with and that you want to work with. Whether you get a referral or an introduction is another thing, but you'll get more if you ask than if you don't. And very often we don't ask. That's the biggest reason we don't get the referrals we want. We don't ask for those referrals from the people we know and that know us. Asking for and using testimonials is really key, and online recommendations review. Testimonials, they're a simple one, really. If somebody says something glowing about you, all you need to do is to use these words. Can I quote you on that? They said that, you know what, Rod, that was an absolutely, the send-off you had for my wife or my husband at the funeral last week was absolutely superb. I really love, and then Rod might say, well, what was particularly special? Well, your guys were very respectful, they were very kind. The way that so-and-so showed my great auntie to her seat was absolutely wonderful. All he has to do is say, can I quote you on that? But I know Rod has a particular way of actually asking for testimonials that he uses online. He's got over 70 Google 5-star reviews. He's the most popular funeral director in Somerset in terms of Google reviews. And online recommendations and reviews. Online recommendations, people are more likely to do business with somebody that's had those online recommendations reviewed than anything. And recommendations are one thing. I think if you look on YouTube, etc., doing a review on a particular product or a service is really key. And this was a good template that they proposed. You don't have to use these words, but certainly having a template like this, best to ask for a referral, but periodically thinking and maybe sending out at an appropriate time how to ask for a referral. I hope everything's going well with you. Have a quick favor to ask. Do you know anyone who's looking for blah, blah, blah in the next so-and-so? And then explaining why you build business on referrals. Staying in touch. 82% of sales take place after the 7th touch. And the trouble is we get really disappointed if we don't get the business immediately. We think it's not working and we'll try something else. Find a system that works for you, a marketing system, and stick at it. Because 82% of sales take place after the 7th touch. How are you going to get from the 1st touch to the 7th? It's all about engagement. It's about staying in touch, and you build long-term loyalty with content marketing. And best channels for content marketing is wherever your client is looking. And this was another template they suggest. Again, it's been a long time since we chatted. I wanted to check in the same things, how are going. We've talked about this before. Very often we've built relationship with people. We've been so focused on what we're doing and we lose touch. And we feel as the time passed that we want to get back in touch with people. I recently suggested to Marcus that he get back in touch with all the clients that he's had that were lost during lockdown. And he's done that. And he's actually won new business as a result. We tend to think that people will have lost interest. Well, you're just out of their mind. The fact that you reach out to them again is a good thing. So that's what they suggest. Be smart about your first phone call, keep the conversation going online, take good notes, make the most of them, find creative ways to say thank you, and proactively ask for referrals and reviews, and use content marketing to never lose touch